Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Planning and Development Control Committee meeting. My name is Omid Miri. I am the chair of the committee. Just going to run through some housekeeping points before we move on to the agenda. The meeting is being live streamed, and by participating, you are consenting to being recorded. If the fire alarm sounds, then I'll adjourn the meeting, and please leave the meeting in an orderly fashion by the staff fire exit, which is behind me to my right. But there are no tests scheduled for tonight, and there are toilets on my left-hand side. And I think that's it for housekeeping. So we move on to item 1, apologies for absence. And we do have apologies from Councillor Rebecca Harvey, if those can be noted, please. Item 2, declaration of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest yet, Councillor Harcourt?
Thank you, Chair. It's item, whatever number item it is, it's 93 to 97A, Scrubs Lane. It's to do with an application or comments on an application to OPDC, and I sit on the OPDC Planning Committee. So I shall not participate in any way or shape or form in the meeting, but I'll stay here.
Okay, thank you very much. Yep, Councillor Carmel.
On the same item, I was informed this afternoon at work, or at one of my works anyway, that they did some work on the consultation process for that application. Therefore, my company had a pecuniary advantage from it, and I shall recuse myself from the meeting and leave.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else? No? Okay, those can be noted, please. That would be great. And now we move on to item 3, minutes of the meeting held on 5th of March 2024. Are the minutes agreed? Okay, thank you very much. That brings us to item 4, which is the first application on the agenda, 58 Boscombe Road. And Neil, whenever you're ready, please introduce the report. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the application relates to 58 Boscombe Road, and the proposal is for the erection of additional floor with terrace at roof level, erection of rear extension, second floor level on top of the existing back addition, in connection with the creation of one self-contained maisonette at second and third floor level, conversion of the existing maisonette at first and second floor level into one self-contained studio flat first floor level, 2-story rear infill at basement and ground floor level, excavation of the front area and rear garden from light wells in connection with the enlargement of the existing basement flat, plus refuse and cycle storage. The application property is an end of terrace property at the junction of Boscombe Road and Goodwin Road. It's a 3-story plus basement property. There's a flat at basement level, a shop at ground floor level, and currently a maisonette at first and second floor level. It's not in a conservation area. This aerial view of the application site, and we're going to talk about this property here at the end of the terrace. As you see, the other 4 properties in this terrace all have additional floors at roof level. And if we go to the rear elevation, again, you can see the roof extension on adjacent properties, plus the back additions on 3 of these have gone up a floor, and there are some 2-story infill extensions at base and ground floor level. Just some more photographs showing the site. See the shop on the corner there, and the rest of the terrace. This just demonstrates the existing light wells on Boscombe Road for the adjacent properties. And then a view there from the junction of Goodwin Road, and Molina Road. It's the existing rear elevation of the property. You see the back additions here on the neighbouring properties have been extended upwards. And again, you can see infill extensions here on numbers 56 and 54. The current basement flat is accessed from the rear. It has 1 window in the rear elevation here, serving a bedroom. And again, further view of it with the steps down to that air level. And then there is another window and door on this flank wall facing the existing back addition of the neighbouring property. Steps down to the basement flat. And then just a view of the rear of the terrace again. That is the site to the rear of the property, which is commercial in nature. There's a couple of photographs of the internal of the basement flat at the moment. It has quite a low ceiling height and say limited lighting. And then the existing plans, you can see basement flat on the left here, then the ground floor shop, and the maisonette on the two upper floors. The proposal here is to add a two-story infill extension to the rear. Else isn't operating for infilling here at basement and ground floor level. Basement level, this enlarges the existing flat by 9 square meters and allows then for a new glazed door and glazed windows to the bedroom area. And then you can see at the front, a light well has been created with windows there to allow lighting into the front area of the flat. The shop largely remained the same, although there was a small storage area that would be added. Then at first floor level, this is originally part of the existing maisonette that will be converted into 1-bedroom flat with a small terrace and the infill, top of the infill extension. Again, that goes no further, projects no further than the existing properties. And then at the upper floor, so an extension here to the back addition, similar to the other properties in the terrace. And then the roof extension with a small terrace there, which is very similar to the terrace at number 56. And that would be a maisonette. The proposed elevations here, you can see you have mansard extension style, same height as the existing in the terrace. And then to the rear, see the extension of the back addition matches the height of the property nearby. And then the two-story basement and ground floor extension, which infilled between the two back additions. And then this section or elevation there shows the small terrace with the railings, which is the same as number 56. Officers are supportive of the proposal and have recommended approval, subject to the completion of a satisfactory legal agreement and conditions listed below. The legal agreement is to ensure that the new additional residential unit would not be entitled to parking permits for on-street parking, and that be in the way of a unilateral undertaking. Now, if I just bring your attention to the addendum, unfortunately, the drawing numbers have been moved to form a new condition 2 on the application, taking it away from the description as it shows, and a new condition number 21 with regards to installation commissioning certificates for electric induction cooking appliances for the 2 self-contained units at first floor and second and third floor level. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Neil. Now we can move on to some speakers. I think we have Chris Brady, who would like to speak in favour of the application. Chris, whenever you're ready, if you'd like to come to the front and just make sure that your mic is on, and you can start whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Good evening, councillors and officers, and thank you for your time tonight. My name is Chris Brady, and I'm a director at Savills Planning. The applicant has recently purchased this property and seeks to optimise the potential of the site as well as improve the quality of the existing dwellings, particularly the low ground floor unit, which is small and has limited natural light. The application proposes a small rear infill extension at low ground and ground floor level, reorganisation of the upper floors to incorporate the recently approved mansard roof extension, a second floor extension and terrace, again similar to what was previously approved, enlargements to the basement, including creating the rear and front light wells, as well as formal cycle and refuse stores to the rear of the site. As a result, 3 well-proportioned dual aspect residential dwellings comprising of 2 1-beds and a 2-bedroom dwelling is created. All units have access to private amenity space and meet housing design standards. Pre-application discussions have been held with officers and the design has evolved, including reducing the size of the rear infill extension to respond to officers or conservation officer comments, which have now been addressed. So subsequently, a policy compliance scheme with no statutory objections is presented tonight. Engagement with the local community has been carried out throughout the project. Neighbours were informed prior to the application being submitted, and a follow-up letter was sent to neighbours during the application process. To respond to some of the neighbours' concerns, the developer has provided reassurances through preparing a detailed construction management plan, undertaking a detailed flood risk and drainage assessments, and has carried out a structural survey of the building. These reports have all been prepared by experts in their fields and have been found to be acceptable by council officers. So, to summarise, these proposals result in the following benefits: an enhancement of the existing dwellings on site, an uplift in homes to meet local need, private amenity space for all dwellings, an enclosed cycle store and refuse store, and most importantly, protecting the existing building and local character through discrete, high quality and well-proportioned extensions being proposed. Policy encourages making effective use of previously developed sites such as this, particularly in highly sustainable locations such as this site. We respectfully request that this policy compliance scheme is approved tonight. If there are any questions, the developer and I are here and are happy to answer these. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Now we can move on to questions for officers. And is there anyone that would like to start the question? Yeah, Councillor Schwartz-Verdier, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to start with the representations made in the pack. I noticed that some of the statutory authorities, Thames Water, Crime Prevention Design Advisor, Environment Agency, they're mentioned as having made representations, but the representations are not in there. So what were they?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Apologies for that. Yes, Thames Water responded with no objection to the proposal and asked us to attach 2 or 3 informatives to the permission relating to flood matters and water pressure, which that has been done. The Crime Prevention Design Advisor's comments were that they had no comments to make. They provided a letter with some recommended materials that should be used and asked us to forward that to the applicants. That was done. And then the Environment Agency raised no objection to the development. But sorry, I mean, those should have been summarised as part of the consultation part of the report.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your response. I wanted to then talk about the basement flat. On page 32 of the report, no, 22 of the report, we're told that there was an enforcement notice against the basement flat, but that was overturned by the planning inspectorate. I was wondering if you could tell us more about what this was about.
Yes, I mean, it was brought to our attention. There's been quite a bit of planning history to the site, and it was brought to our attention that there was a basement flat that was operating, had no permission. Our enforcement team investigated and served an enforcement notice on that property. They appealed against the enforcement notice to the planning inspectorate, who, in their decision, dismissed the enforcement notice and we're happy that the flat had been there for at least 4 years, and therefore it was an authorised use.
Thank you very much for this. And was this under the current ownership or a previous ownership?
I believe this would be under previous ownership.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, Councillor Connell.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions about the conditions, if I may. I'm noting condition 3, the screening for the terrace is only 1.1 metre as opposed to our standard 1.7 metres, and 2, its railings are not permanently obscured. I wondered if you could give me some explanation for the change in what is basically a standard condition.
That condition was chosen because the proposed terrace they're proposing railings as per the terrace, the existing terrace at number 56. If we get a better image. If you see on there, the adjacent property has a terrace, similar location with railings. Therefore, the applicant proposed to use railings in a similar vein, and that's why that condition was used.
Just may follow up on that, but if you were allow another one with only 1.1 and see-through railings, doesn't that allow for potential for overlooking? And I thought that the general principle was the first one can get away with unobscured railing, screening, or whatever, but subsequent ones, because of the possibility of overlooking, would then be required to have 1.7 obscured.
I don't think there's any set position that the first one can get away with it. I mean, this terrace has been existing for some time. The only I guess this terrace already has views into the application property. The only people affected would be the terrace on this adjacent property.
The second question is just I was noting on the addendum, is it now policy that we insist on induction appliances as opposed to ordinary non-gas? Is there any national or local policy that requires electric induction cooking appliances as opposed to electric cooking appliances?
These are the conditions that was requested by our air quality team. It is something they're looking to implement on where they can with applications in order to help deal with the emissions and to improve the air quality.
I don't have a problem. It's just that to specify induction, which is actually still quite rare in and around, seems just strange. It just piqued my interest.
Okay, Councillor Harcourt.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, certainly induction rather than gas is becoming the norm. It's part of one of the things that we want to see as part of the air quality, emissions and climate change policies, because gas is obviously one of the key causes and emitters of carbon in the borough. So that's the reason behind it. Anyway, that wasn't the point that I was going to raise. I've got a couple of queries. You saw there's the photo of the basement flat. And in the report, it talks about it being 2.5 meters in height over 75% of the area, or whatever the phrase is. It didn't look particularly like 2.5 meters. Can you just confirm that it is?
No, at present, the basement flat does not have 2.5 meters. The floor would be lowered by around about 400 mil as part of the proposal. So the floor lowered to increase the ceiling height, the light well to the front, and then the additional floor space from the rear extension, which will certainly improve the situation for that basement flat immensely.
Thank you. I obviously misunderstood that. The second point is I do know this area quite well, and I've known a number of people who've been flooded at the various times when we've had heavy rain and so on. And Boscombe Road is one of the areas which is prone to flooding, especially basements. So what I've read in the report, some of the works that have been done, are we absolutely confident that they will be sufficient to stop any backflows or flooding should we have another July 2020, whatever it was, event? Was it 2019?
Yeah, I mean, the submission has certainly been considered by our colleagues who respond on SUDS and floods matters, and they were satisfied with the details in the flood risk assessment, so they were happy with what was being proposed.
Okay.
Okay, do we have any other questions? No further questions? Okay, in that case, we'll move to voting. We'll firstly vote on whether recommendation 1 in the report is agreed, and that's on page 10. So Councillor Chabot-Verdier, will you be voting for, against, or not voting?
For.
Councillor Harcourt?
For.
Councillor Souslous?
For.
Councillor Walsh?
For.
Councillor Carmel?
4.
Councillor Pascal Toubourey.
4.
I'll also be voting for, so recommendation 1 has been approved. We'll now move on to voting on recommendation 2, which is also on page 10. Councillor Schwartz-Verdier.
4.
Councillor Harcourt.
4.
Councillor Souslouz. 4. Councillor Walsh.
4.
Councillor Carmel.
4.
Councillor Pascal Toubourey.
4.
I'll also be voting for, so that application has been approved. Thank you very much. Now we move on to item 5, which is the K West Hotel. And could I please introduce the officer Sean Brown to introduce the report whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This application relates to the K West Hotel on Richmond Way. The application relates to internal and external refurbishment of the existing hotel to provide 12 additional guest bedrooms, which would be a total of 231, and associated enhanced hotel facilities. K West Hotel is a 109-bedroom, 4-star boutique hotel. The hotel also includes a bar, restaurant, meeting rooms, and spa gym facilities, which are also available to non-hotel guests. As you can see, the subject site is elongated, with the hotel entrance fronting Richmond Way to the west, and the site stretching under and slightly beyond the Addison Gardens flyover to the east. The immediate area is predominantly residential. To the south of the site lies the properties of Sinclair Gardens and Sinclair Road. And to the north, we have Sinclair Mansions, Woodstock Studios and Woodstock Grove. The site is located within Shepherd's Bush Town Centre and White City Opportunity Area. It's not located within a conservation area. However, it borders the Lake Sinclair Blythe Conservation Area to the south. This is an aerial view of the site. Vehicle access is via Richmond Way here, which leads along the northern elevation of the building and to the rear of the site. This is a view of the hotel looking north along Richmond Way, and this is a view from Chaircroft Road. The proposals work within the envelope of the existing building. There will be no increase to the overall floor space. Internally, the works include replanning of the guest accommodation to provide 12 additional guest rooms, expansion of the existing facilities, including a larger restaurant and bar area, the enlargement and refurbishment of the existing spa facilities, and the replanning of existing informal meeting and conference spaces. The hours of use will remain as per the existing arrangements. The application is supported by an operational management plan, which sets out the key principles by which the building will be managed, including the hours of use as shown. This is secured by a condition. Apologies for the scale of the plans, but in effect, these show the resultant layouts of the refurbished hotel. So at basement level, you've got the spa and gym facilities. The level above, which is kind of lower ground floor level, is office accommodation in connection with the operational phase of the hotel. Above it, third floor level, which is actually ground floor level to the front of the site, is where the new or expanded restaurant and bar facilities will be. The remainder of the hotel on all floors will be hotel bedrooms. Finally, at level 4, we have conference spaces. Sorry. Here, and then the remaining floors will be occupied by guest accommodation. As you can see, the existing building is in need of refurbishment. Externally, the building works will primarily focus on the refurbishment and insulation of the existing building envelope, including the replacement of the UPVC windows, which will be replaced with aluminium fixed glazed windows. The repairing of the brickwork here, and the repairing and painting of the concrete frame, which you can see runs around the building there. At roof level, PV panels will be installed across the flat roof areas, and the existing brick plant enclosures shown here will be replaced by new acoustic louver enclosures. These plans show a comparison between the existing and proposed north and south elevations. As you can see, the changes are minimal. Where there is roof-mounted plant, this has been restricted to areas where plant enclosures are currently located, and windows replace existing windows. Same here. In terms of the Richmond Way elevation, the original curtain wall system and windows to the main entrance facade will be replaced with new aluminium frame double glazing, and the original render finish to the flank walls will be replaced with a new insulated render system in a dark grey colour. The existing metal canopy framework will be retained. There will be some windows at level 1, which is the basement, which will be converted to glazed doors to allow access to external amenity spaces associated with the proposed spa, gym facilities, and 6 adjoining guest rooms to the southern elevation. This slide shows the existing and proposed sections of the spa gym garden in relation to the rear boundaries of the properties on St. Clair Gardens. As this slide shows, due to the separation distance, the change in ground levels and the existing dense vegetation, the use of the new external areas would not result in overlooking issues. In terms of noise, the applicant has agreed to limit the use of the spa and gym external areas to the hours of 8 AM to 8 PM Monday to Sunday, and this is captured within the approved operational management plan. The condition will also limit the size of these areas. Separately to the rear of the site, there will be a vacuum plant installed, which is underneath the Addison Gardens flyover. And further to the east, there will be a new substation and switch room here, which will be erected adjacent to the boundary with 156 to 160 St. Clair Road. The existing chilling compound will be replaced by a new plant compound here with acoustic insulation and louver screens to mitigate noise pollution. There have been concerns from residents that the new plant may cause loss of outlook and noise pollution. As you can see from these images, the plant room and the switch room and substation would project only marginally above the height of the existing wall. And as such, it's not considered that the structures would cause undue loss of outlook. Similarly, for the replacement plant compound, this is the existing chilling compound, and this is the proposed. As you can see, there's no difference in terms of scale and massing. On that basis, it's not considered there would be undue harm to the neighbours. In terms of noise, an acoustic report has been submitted and has been scrutinised by environmental protection officers who are satisfied that the operation of the plant would have a negligible impact on the amenities of residents. Conditions will ensure plant noise limits and anti-vibration measures remain in compliance with the acoustic report, and a post-installation noise assessment will be required to be carried out to confirm compliance and to require additional steps to mitigate noise if necessary. Finally, the existing parking provision for 29 cars and 1 coach will be rearranged to accommodate 1 additional coach parking space, resulting in the provision of 24 car parking spaces and 1 disabled parking space. Disabled parking space is located here to the front of the site. Officers have secured several planning obligations, including a contribution of £100,000 towards community safety and place shaping, a hotel travel plan, highways improvements arising from a healthy streets assessment, and the development will be parking permit free. So in summary, the proposals to refurbish an existing large hotel within the Shepherd's Bush town centre is considered acceptable in land use terms, as well as increasing and enhancing London's visitor economy. The proposal would also provide additional employment opportunities and would support the viability of the Shepherd's Bush town centre. The proposal is acceptable in visual terms and is considered to be of a good quality design. And finally, subject to conditions and a Section 106 agreement, the proposal would not result in unacceptable impacts on the amenities of neighbouring properties or on highway safety and amenity. On this basis, officers recommend the application is approved, subject to conditions and legal agreement. I don't have a copy of the addendum, but on there, if I could draw your attention to that there. Thank you. The condition 20 has been amended to incorporate a restriction to the doors on the western elevation to prevent them from being open between the hours of 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. And the remaining amendments relate to slight variation to the charging levels for the electric charging vehicle points for the cars and for the coach parking. And this is on the basis that the applicant confirmed there was limited electrical supply in terms of this on the site, but notwithstanding that, because the charging points would be in connection with guests staying there, they wouldn't necessarily need to be fast charging. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe we have some speakers now, so I'd like to invite Florian Bromell and Stephen Mallon to speak, and you both have 5 minutes between you, however you'd like to split that, and whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Hello. Thanks to the committee and the officers for the opportunity to present tonight. My name's Stephen Mallon. I'm the Director of Mosaic Architecture and Design, firm of architects and interior designers helping the hotel. And with me today is Florian Bromell, who is the General Manager of the Key West Hotel and Spa and has been for the last 7 years and has worked with within the group for the last 20 years as well. The owners of the building are, for the first time since they purchased the building 25 years ago, investing in a major refurbishment of this existing hotel and spa. The project follows the retrofit first approach to provide a sustainable and energy efficient building suitable for another generation. The hotel seeks to become a neighbourhood hub and provide a positive contribution to the life of the local community. Internally, the hotel will provide 231 bedrooms and enhanced bar, restaurant, meeting rooms and spa. The building will be refurbished externally with high-performance aluminium windows, render brick and concrete repairs, and a new glaze frontage to Richmond Way. New landscaping will improve the public realm, together with cycle parking and EV charging points for cars. The hotel will provide significant employment during both the construction and operational phases of the development. The hotel will be rebranded as a Hotel Indigo, Key West Hotel and Spa, and through their guests will promote tourism and support local businesses in the area. Recommend the application to the committee, and we're available for any questions if there are any.
Okay, thank you very much. Was there anything? No? Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. If you'd like to return to your seats, thank you so much. We are also joined by the one of the local councillors for the ward, Councillor Jacqueline Daly. If you'd like to come and make some comments as well, whenever you're ready.
Thanks very much, Chair. I've been following this particular application since the consultation stage, and there have been quite a mixed bag of comments from residents. The hotel is a landmark. It's played part of the musical heritage of the area. It's really very well known, and it's unmissable. And it is looking tired. It does need a refurbishment. There are residents that know the manager well. He's been quite generous with space for community meetings, and I've attended ward panel meetings there myself. So he's known to quite a lot of residents, and I recognise that he's had some support for it, quite a bit of support. There have also been residents who are less supportive, and I understand the reasons completely. The K West Hotel is one end of the road, where Olympia is at the other end. In the middle of that, there was the old Sanctuary Records, which was refurbished a few years ago and caused quite a lot of problems. And that area was also marked out by Thames Water, what that Counters Creek approach. Residents there are really nervous. They are partly nervous that there's going to be more rooms and more footfall, and that's very much kind of a reflection of how they feel about Olympia. But they're also really nervous about the building works itself. And I kind of recognise that with Olympia at one end and this at the other, they kind of feel like that. However, there's no doubt that some works do need to take place. The plans that I've seen bring the hotel into being more of a community amenity. The plans are that it's going to be open there for residents to have like brunches there and drinks there, and the spa and the gym, and to be more of a kind of a community amenity, which I think is really welcomed and quite really useful in that area. There's an awful lot of positivity and good reasons for doing this. As I say, it's kind of a necessity. If it was even possible to say, could there be some kind of caveat that would keep the lorries and the deliveries up to the Chaircraft Way end? I realise that's not part of the planning committee, but I thought I'd say it out loud anyway. Then I think that the neighbours on Sinclair Gardens, Sinclair Road would really appreciate that concession at least. And that's it really. I think that residents are mostly supportive, and those that aren't are really just, it's because of Olympia.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, thanks for your time. Yeah, if you'd like to return to your seat, thank you so much. Thanks. Sean, actually, before we get to questions, could we go back to the slide that just shows where the site is? So the map with the street names as well. Yeah, that's perfect. And am I right in understanding that the only way lorries could access the site is from Richmond Way?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And just to speak to Councillor Daly's point, the construction management plan doesn't change that in any way. That's where the construction vehicles will enter the site.
And in terms of the construction logistics plan, that is secured by a condition. So they've given us a sort of general overview, but it wasn't considered detailed enough for us to secure the implementation of that document as shown to us. So final details will be subject to a condition. I guess in terms of taking into account other development within the vicinity, that is something that we do consider as part of the construction logistics plan, because obviously we don't want too many vehicles coming from the same direction. So that is a factor that will be considered when the construction logistics plan is submitted.
Okay, but as far as you know, the only way vehicles can access the site is from that Richmond Way, Chaircraft Way end.
Yes, as far as I know.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Yep, Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Chair. Just firstly, just a point of clarification. I noticed obviously there's discussion about the EV chargers. How many is there going to be? I don't think that's actually referenced directly.
Sorry, apologies for that. So there's 5 in total for the cars, and then each coach parking space will have one. There'll be a dual point, which will be shared between both coach spaces.
And just a matter of curiosity, will this be CCS or CHAdeMO or both?
I think we've got a condition which asks for details to be submitted, so we'll have a look at that have a look at the specification when it comes in as part of the condition. I
And
don't
just-
think it's been outlined at the moment. It's just in terms of the number and location.
Okay, and just on that, if it is possible to kind of make the case for, obviously, CCS is now kind of more the standard point of charging. So if it is more Chatham, that at least CCS be provided for within the charging provision.
Yeah, I think, sorry, through the chair. Yeah, I think we would push for the most effective and efficient means of charging as possible. There are wider issues around which there may be operational and challenges there, so we couldn't commit at this stage, and would be something we'd have to look at when the details come in.
Sure. And kind of on final point on that is just in regards to the maintenance and upkeep of such charging points. Obviously, the EV network across the nation is developing and improving, but there has been on occasions particular lags in terms of the maintenance and upkeep of them as well. So is it possible to include in this condition that they be maintained in perpetuity and be of good working order?
Sorry, I'm just looking at the wording of the condition. We do normally say that they should be retained for the lifetime of the development. So you could just bear with me. So condition 39, which relates to the details of the installation, number, location and type of electric vehicle charging points. And the final sentence of that states approved details shall be fully implemented prior to occupation and thereafter permanently retained and maintained.
Perfect, thank you. Could you go please to the slide, just a cross section where the basement and the vegetation is on? Yep, that one. I'm just curious, obviously, there is discussion in the report regarding the protection of the roots of trees for this. In the event that it is discovered during the excavation process that the roots have extended beyond the boundaries of the property, will it be possible to ensure that will there be any additional changes taking place then? Or can you just speak a bit more to the protection of the trees in that area?
Yes, could you just bear with me one moment? Thank you. Okay, hi, sorry about that. There's a condition 9, which requires the development to be undertaken in accordance with the arboricultural impact assessment, method statement and tree protection plan that was submitted. Our tree officer has recognised that there could be some larger roots that may be affected. So he's requested part of the condition include a restriction saying that no roots exceeding 25 mils shall be severed and those below 25 mils shall be cut clean with sharp tools. And these measures should apply to any tree on site and any trees adjacent to the site.
Yes, that's specifically the condition. I mean, is the tree protection officer confident that 25 mils is making a decision across a route that won't cause any structural or long-term harm to the tree itself?
Yeah, I would assume so, based on that specific request for the wording to be included in the condition.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harcourt.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know whether I'm the only member on this committee who remembers this application coming forward, whenever it was 1995. I can't remember the detail, I must admit, but I do remember the discussion around it and so on. And yeah, you know, looking at the drawings and looking at the photos and so on, and having been there, passed there a number of times, it is obviously in need of a bit of refurbishment and upgrading and so on. And what I've been hearing is really quite good. There's one real issue for me that comes up when that's to do with noise and the potential for noise, and that relates both to the plant on the roof, the substation and such like, but also the spa garden, which is the one that's adjacent to the properties. And I think there's something in the report about a fence along there. Is this an acoustic fence or not?
So I think that there is a fence sort of to provide some element of acoustic protection, but it's in our view, I wouldn't say it's necessary because of the restrictions that we're putting on in terms of the use of that space, because of the hours of use from 8 o'clock till 8 p.m. I don't think we would be asking for additional mitigation measures above and beyond that, but I do understand that the fencing does provide some acoustic measures, but as I say, it's not something that we would have required in order to find the scheme acceptable in terms of noise and disturbance. We've got conditions limiting the hours of use and also in terms of enlarging those spaces as well. And that door should be self-closing, so that any noise shouldn't be able to escape from the use of the gym and the spa facilities as well.
Yeah, no, I read all that. I was just wondering whether that fence was one of these acoustic fences like they put along motorways, roads and things to absorb some of the noise.
I'm told no, it's not.
Okay, the next bit then is more about the plant on the roof, because there's a change into the whatever you call it, the enclosure with louvers, and obviously there's air conditioning and refurbished and so on. Are we confident that the amount of noise that those are going to be making, or that's emitted by those, or I don't know what the regulation is in terms of what distance and what the audible level will be, but is it less than current, or is it?
Can I ask our environmental protection officer to answer that? Thank you.
I think obviously there is, you know, as Councillor Daly said, there's nervousness amongst residents about noise and everything else.
Yeah.
And so really, is it things going to be worse or better?
Thank you, Chair. Through the Chair. It's going to be better is the short answer. There was a background survey done with the existing plant. We have had complaints over that, and it was measured at 56 decibels. We question that as we believe the existing plant was in operation, which is going to be removed. So the true background would be without that plant. They redid this survey with the plant off, and it came in at 42 decibels, a big difference. So the existing is 56, the true background is 42, and they've confirmed that they will meet 32, which are our standard 10 dB below. So there's actually an improvement of 24 decibel reduction in the new scheme.
That applies to the various bits and pieces. There's the rooftop plant, there's the whatever the other bits and pieces. There's the what is it? The substation and key and switch room and such like.
That's correct. The new plant has been designed specified. Additional mitigation in the plant room with the louvers has been added to the scheme to meet that limit. The chiller, we have had confirmation that it will meet that limit with sufficient enclosures. The substations generally don't admit any high-level noises, so you get a hum from them. But again, the rooms are designed to prevent that. So we're confident at this time that they will be able to meet those limits.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yep, Councillor Short-Verdier.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to talk about the space in the premises that will be used for restoration, bar, etc. So in the report, you explain that in the original planning application, the bar and restaurant spaces weren't meant to be used by external persons, non-guests, but that has since evolved to become legal. So I was wondering if you could explain that to me, because I didn't understand it.
Yes, thank you. So when permission was originally granted in 1996, there was a condition which restricted the use of the bar and restaurant areas for guests only. Following that, there was an application to vary that condition to allow non-hotel guests to use the restaurant. And that was permitted for a temporary period of 1 year, expiring in 2005. The restriction in terms of non-guests using the bar remained. So this was questioned when the application came in, because obviously we recognise that non-hotel guests would now be using this space. The applicant went away and came back with various pieces of evidence to demonstrate that the hotel, bar and restaurant areas have in fact been used by guests of the hotel and non-guests since 2005. We also have licensing records dating from 2005, which permits the sale of alcohol and hot food for non-guests at the hotel. So on that basis, I think we're confident that there's enough evidence to demonstrate that the hotel has been operating in that manner for at least 10 years, and therefore that use is now lawful. The proposed use would operate in the same manner as it does at the moment. There would be no change to that in terms of access and also hours of use.
Thank you. That's very helpful. So in the report, you explained to us that there's a reduction in the size of the bar, doubling of the size of the restaurant to enable breakfasts in 2 servings, gym and spa are getting bigger. So what's the total floor area for these, all of these combined, and what does it get to now?
Put me on the spot. Yeah, I've got a table, but I don't unless
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can stick to
Yeah.
that.
I think the main difference relates to the additional space for the restaurant, and that's to accommodate the additional covers. So that's almost doubled in size. And the rest of it pretty much remains as it is.
And where is that space coming from?
So basically, they rejigged the hotel. So a lot of the bedrooms were focused on triple and quadruple rooms, and that's now changed. So they've been able to gain a bit more floor space for the front of house accommodation and also the additional rooms as well. I guess there's just not the need for that scale of room for the current hotel.
And so what I'm looking at, it's a very helpful table. Thank you for this. So none of these will be accessible by external people without going through the front desk.
That's right.
Yeah, because so as we understand it, in the original planning application, the outside space had been consented to be used by guests, just the hotel had chosen never to do it. I'm looking at this actually, it's very helpful. What's the rationale behind giving 24/7 access to the gym and the spa to guests, but not to non-guests?
Presumably just make it more attractive to guests, but I guess at least for the non-guests, there's an element of mitigation there in terms of comings and goings, and perhaps later in the evening, maybe to have less people within those spaces, because they would just be used by guests. But that is the existing situation at the moment, and that it's not proposed to change in terms of that.
Is this something the applicant requested?
No, I think a lot of the proposed hours of use have just been retained as they are at the moment. Apart from the introduction of the external areas for the spa and gym, the rest of the hotel pretty much operates as it does at the moment.
Okay, thank you. I'll think on that a little bit, but then afterwards, just a comment, not a question. Channeling my inner councillor Harcourt spirit, I've noticed that in the report you tell us that there's a total reduction of carbon emission, CO2 emissions, that is about 56%. I just wanted it noted because I just find it absolutely great and huge. And according to some random Finnish CO2 conversion website, that's equivalent to 307 flights. So I think that's really noticeable. Where is that sort of will to reduce carbon emission come from? Or is this in line with what we now ask for from planning permissions?
I think in this case, because it's not actually a major, it wasn't necessarily a requirement, but I suppose it's a bit of a reflection in terms of how tired the existing building is. By doing these alterations can actually result in these kinds of improvements. But in addition to that, they've obviously included air source heat pumps and an array of PV panels across the roof as well, in addition to that. So it's a combination of renewable energy and passive design changes.
Thank you. It's great to see that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Carmel.
Thank you. I'm back on some of the conditions. I note that we're getting some new wheelchair accessible rooms, 4 of which a minimum of 15%, or how you're going to do the 0.6 is another matter, have to be, the 15 rooms have to be wheelchair accessible. We've got 24 spaces, 231 rooms, and 1 blue badge parking space. Is that really going to be sufficient for, especially when you're increasing the number of wheelchair accessible rooms?
The provision that's been proposed is in line with the London plan, but I do understand what you're saying in terms of there being existing parking on site and why there can't be more. That's just what's in front of us, and it's in accordance with the London plan.
Sorry, the London plan says that one disabled parking space for 231 rooms with 15 wheelchair accessible rooms. Is it in compliance?
Well, we have to consider the net increase rather than the overall provision. So the net increase of 12 units, that's what it would be compared against.
Okay, that's that one. I am going to propose an amendment to condition 30. Can I just make the thing that the first paragraph the condition should end and a full stop put in by hereby approved, and delete the rest of the paragraph.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Condition 30. Okay, I'll read that. No organised delivery of food, i.e. takeaway deliveries to customers, shall take place from the commercial premises hereby approved. Full stop, end of paragraph. And then you have the justification in the next paragraph.
I think for the purposes of the condition, so it's in terms of noise mitigation. So by preventing any motorized electric powered or motorized electric powered vehicles or cycles. In terms of the reason of the condition, it's for noise and disturbance. I guess you could get people coming on bicycles, which wouldn't necessarily cause any noise and disturbance.
And just to come in here, so just to be clear, the condition doesn't stop deliveries just using normal non-motorized bicycles.
No.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
There are restaurants which I'm sure you're aware of, the Uber Eats, and you sometimes get 15 or 20 bicycles queuing up outside. And this is not a fast food place. They actually cook their food properly. And they do make noise as they congregate outside, and there are local residents. So what I wanted to do was, in the interests of local amenity of the occupiers of the surrounding premises, do a sort of belt and braces thing. We have imposed such condition in the past, especially on pizza restaurants. There was one on Fulham Palace Road, I remember, where we imposed no organised deliveries whatsoever.
Yeah, through the chair, we just feel it would be overly restricted. We feel that deliveries would be acceptable if they were by no non-motorised means, and given the proximity to the town centre and probably quite a lot of takeaway establishments, there is a likelihood that they could be delivered via non-motorised vehicles, but obviously it's the discretion of the committee if they want to suggest an amendment.
Yeah, thank you. My only thought is, I know the condition says the commercial premises. So there's, I mean, even if we were to vote through the proposed changes, Councillor Carmel suggesting, there's nothing to stop residents of the hotel coming out of the hotel a bit further down the street to collect their deliveries, which would just cause the same amount of noise or disturbance. So I think I agree with Matt on this, that that would be too restrictive. What do you mean? Go ahead.
I think you slightly misunderstood. The condition doesn't, as it's written, doesn't stop deliveries to residents. It's as I read it, it's to external customers. So there's nothing. Yes.
But why would we want to restrict deliveries to hotel customers?
Not.
So, but by shortening the, you're leaving the from, okay, right, okay. Maybe.
I note that as written, this already restricts people rocking up to take their deliveries on e-bikes or by electric cars. So if the plan is to do it because of noise, then that's already being covered. So it makes complete sense to extend it and do a belt and brace approach. And it's not illogical to do that.
Okay, do we have any other questions or comments on this point? No? Okay, Councillor Carmel, you want to formally move, and is anyone happy to second that? Yeah, okay. So we'll vote on that at the end when we come to the general voting. Are there any other questions unrelated to that? No? Okay. In that case, we'll move to voting. So firstly, we'll vote on the amendment to condition 30 that's just been laid out by Councillor Carmel. Councillor Chavot-Verdier, do you vote for, against, or not voting on that amendment?
Non-voting.
Okay. Councillor Harcourt?
Against.
Councillor Sistus?
Against.
Councillor Walsh?
Against.
Councillor Carmel? Councillor Pascu-Tibere?
For.
And I'll also be voting against. So that proposed amendment has been refused. Now we move on to recommendation 1, which is on page 39 of the report. Councillor Chavot-Verdier?
For.
Councillor Harcourt?
For.
Councillor Sistus?
For.
Councillor Walsh?
For.
Councillor Carmel?
For.
Councillor Pascu-Tibere?
For.
And I'll also be voting for. And now we move on to recommendation 2, which is also on page 39. Councillor Chavot-Verdier?
For.
Councillor Harcourt?
For.
Councillor Sistus?
For.
Councillor Walsh?
For.
Councillor Carmel?
For.
Councillor Pascu-Tibere?
For.
I'll also be voting for. So that application has been approved. Thank you very much. Thank you. We now move to, yes, of course, we'll move to item 6, and Councillor Carmel will be leaving the room. So just give him a moment to do that. Okay, I think Councillor Carmel's left the room and Councillor Harcourt is in the public gallery. So can I please ask the presenting officer, Yayan Bellis, to introduce the report? This is for item 6, 9397A Scrubs Lane. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair.
This is a site that's in our borough, but it's in the OPDC area, so they're the determining local planning authority. We remain the housing authority and the highway authority. You can see the plan there. On the eastern side is the St Mary's Cemetery. Site itself is broadly rectangular, about 0.1 hectare in size, situated immediately adjacent to the Hyde Road junction, and surrounded by larger developments which is underway. To the south, you've got North Kensington Gate South site, which is under construction. And then on the eastern side, you've got the Mitre Way South site, which is under construction. So there's quite a bit going on around it. This is, by comparison to those two developments, is relatively small beer. It's a part 5-story, part 13-story residential-led development over some commercial Class C uses at ground floor level. Before I go any further, I'll draw your attention to the addendum. Apologies for the size of it. The main part of the addendum, which is identified as 2 there, is picking out elements of the written report, which we send to the OPDC anyway, in order that there's a sort of an aid memoir there of the key issues that we would expect to see addressed should they decide to approve this further down the line. I should point out at this time that there's no such decision been made, but they have a committee in May and we don't. So the purpose of putting it to this committee was to advise the chair on how it was coming forward and to highlight those areas of concern that we have, specifically in respect to the objection that's mentioned at the top of the report, which is to do with the affordable housing offer, but also in respect of issues which are more caveats than objections at this stage, because we don't know. But they need to be squared off, and we don't know whether that will happen or not. So the backstory to this site is there was a consent granted in 2018 by the OPDC, very similar development, I think 4 stories and 11 stories, a single building stepping up, which provided 47 residential units, 30% of which were affordable at that time by habitable room. This scheme, which is the same residential-led scheme, and as I said, is 5-story and 13, so slightly taller, 1 story in the case of the lower element and 2 stories in the case of the upper element, and provides 63 residential units. As explained in the report, given the development that's now underway around the site, some of which is shown there, you'll see that the blue line is our site. See how the building steps up fronting Scrubs Lane, immediately opposite the junction with Hyde Road. Property to the left in that image is commercial. The property to the right is also commercial, this storage. And then you get the outline you're looking at there is the North Kensington Gate South site, the dotted line, and then the darker line is on the actual west side of the road, and that is the Mites Bridge site. So you can see by comparison to what's currently proposed, it's effectively double the height, just looking at those images. And as a result of that, we're not objecting in principle, although we did object to the initial scheme on the basis of timescape and scale, primarily reflecting what's been approved subsequently by the OPDC and is currently under construction now. There are elements to do with the design which are covered off in the report and which we've highlighted, which are improvements. One of those relates to the potential of a gate access to the cemetery, and therefore a degree of connectivity that doesn't exist at the moment, and the potential for some improvements within the cemetery that would enhance that kind of access. As I said, those are sort of caveated issues that we've highlighted now that are already on the agenda and on the radar of the OPDC, so it's a matter of simply reaffirming, that we agree with what they're asking the applicant to do, and we want to be involved on elements of the scheme where it includes us, and that includes, in this particular case, notwithstanding the affordable housing offer, the housing side of things. So in the event that we arrive at a scenario where the affordable housing offer is acceptable, and currently it's 3 units or 11 units, 3 units is 5%, but they are London affordable rents. The alternative option they put forward in the current FVA is 11 units, which amounts to 20%, but they're all shared ownership. So we have a problem currently with both the quantum and lack of sufficient justification for that in our opinion, although that's a matter for the OPDC. And also in the case of the the shared ownership units, even if we were to go that route, notwithstanding again the quantum there is nothing at the moment that demonstrates how those would be genuinely affordable for our purposes in the way that we normally arrange ourselves internally. We would expect there to be a range of costs within the caps in the bands that we normally get to make it genuinely affordable. So, in short, there are some significant questions rising out of the FEA, which the OPDC are trying to investigate further. We don't know whether that will result in changes that they'll reconsult us on. So these comments before you this evening are restricted to those that are formulated on the basis of what's on the table at the moment. So that's the main objection is the quantum and nature of the affordable housing offer, which we think needs further work in order to be justified if it's going to be justified. The other matters, including the stuff on the addendum there, is really to allow the OPDC to have sight of these caveats without having to pick them up individually, as it were, from the body of the report. We will send the report as well. So it's for clarity as much as anything. That's why it's not badged as an objection per se. It might turn into one if obviously these caveats aren't met. A lot of the caveats also deal with our powers as a highway authority. You know, as I said, we are still the highway authority, and therefore things like 278 works, and there are a number of them mentioned in this application, would need to be done with agreement from us as the highway authority, and they'll need to be paid. Payment would need to come to us. So again, you know, we're flagging up that and trying to get those discussions kick-started at the earliest opportunity so that we can sort of influence them. We're also expecting to see a draft of the 106 as they get to that point, so we can have sight of how they're dealing with some of these other issues, a lot of which again either involve collaboration with us or involve us contributing to the sign-off process. Some don't, they've got their own consultants. But so again, it's more of a safety net at this stage, with the exception of that objection. That won't change unless the actual scenario changes and the background changes. But at the moment, I can't envisage a situation where we would accept that level of affordable housing. Yeah, I mean, even if the 20% was to go to a mix, unless that increases the quantum as well as the 10-year split, even that's going to be problematic, I feel, from our perspective. But that's as of now, so that situation may change. And if it does, we have an opportunity to come back to committee and advise of any changes. So on that basis, and given that we're not the determining authority, we are sharing with the members tonight what we propose to send off to the OPDC, which will then be included in their committee report in due course. We don't know when that is yet. And then we'll pick up the, you know, if they do determine to approve it, we'll need to pick up the other caveated measures we've got highlighted there in the discussions around the 106. That makes sense?
Yeah, thank you very much. Any questions? Councillor Souslis.
Obviously, it shouldn't affect our decision on this today, but we've objected a few times, I think, now in the last couple of years to OPDC applications. And I was just wondering what is usually the response, if there's something they take into account, if they amend plans accordingly, if you know.
I mean, it kind of depends on the site. I mean, I think generally speaking, the largest sites where they've got a vested interest in getting the OPD on site, and indeed ourselves, they do tend to try and act on the advice where they can. The sites like this, which I would call a medium scale site compared to the others around it, you know, the OPDC pursue these kind of issues with them direct, advise us in our normal catch-up meetings of what they're doing. So they don't treat them any differently. They have their own local plan now as of 2022, which sets the targets for them, which obviously we're aware of as well. So those discussions are sort of helpful and fruitful, but we, you know, from our perspective, we use them as an opportunity to defend the council's position and the council's interests. Now, a lot of the time, the sites aren't in our borough, so you're talking about impact on the borough from views, for example, to the scrubs. This is slightly different because this is in the borough, and therefore we're still the housing authority and we've got issues there. the normal practice with the OPDC is if they approve affordable housing, they make it available to not just themselves, but Brent and Ealing too. In this particular case, obviously speaking on behalf of this council rather than those two, we've made it clear that we expect the nominations agreement to be entered into. And in fairness, that is their normal practice. And that's done in negotiation with the housing department. So they will be able to reflect on any elements of that they're not happy with before the thing is signed off. So yes, to answer your question, is they're under their own pressures in terms of quantums, in terms of what the local plan says in housing delivery and jobs. But our job, as it were, is to be aware of that, but to be more resilient in terms of arguing the council's case.
Yes, Councillor Walsh.
Thank you. So more just of a comment than a question. Purely as you know about the shared ownership provision, just to make the comment that it doesn't seem to be a particularly great offer. Shared ownership is obviously a form of ownership, but it is one that has its own unique particular problems, particularly as we've seen with the current cost of living crisis, but also the increase in interest rates as well. This has meant that there has been, I think, a noticeable uptick in the resale of shared ownership properties from people who had just about been able to get on the ladder, who were then trapped into shared ownership properties. And these properties in turn can be quite difficult to resell. So I think as a provision of affordable housing, this is probably the least encouraging form of affordable living to be provided for. I just want to make that comment.
Yes, and yeah, and if you want to come in, but just to say, I completely agree with Councillor Walsh, and I see in the recommendation in the report that officers have clarified that the preference is for genuinely affordable homes, such as social rent above intermediate. I would agree that shared ownership is not genuinely affordable. If you'd like to go ahead.
No, I wholeheartedly agree. I think that, our preference is for London affordable rent, if we can get it. In this case, they're offering 3 homes for that. I agree wholeheartedly on shared ownership, and, at the very least, notwithstanding the matters that have been raised there, if you're going to kind of introduce that product, even if it's part of a mix, in this case it's not, it's exclusively of shared ownership, you still need to have income caps in different bands within the maximum caps. Otherwise, how do you demonstrate it's genuinely affordable? Setting aside the resale issues. So there are a number of things. Our preference is definitely for rented. It wouldn't immediately switch to shared ownership in any scenario, even with those bands. A mixture might be preferable, but that's not on the table. I mean, all we've got to go on at the moment are the 2 offers they put in writing to the OPDC.
Okay, yeah, Councillor Pascoe-Tiberi.
Thank you very much. I have a, slight but a long-standing concern that if we can't make developments like this affordable, then what can we make affordable? To my eyes, this should be exactly the kind of type of building, of the type of scale, in the type of area that should be lending itself to these affordable things. And I wonder whether there's an element, and you might not be able to fully comment on this, whether the thing that we often hear of we can't make this affordable is in fact the first stage in a lengthy negotiation, or whether there is actual robustness about the methodologies to which this has been done. Because if it really is robust and it really is such a marginal thing, then I think we're in big trouble more generally.
Through the chair. Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of that as well. I mean, I think the problem, or the issue for us here is that they're trying to hide behind an FTA which says they can't afford any more than this, that the scheme is not viable. The thing about an FTA is it needs to be robustly sort of challenged and checked, which is what the OPDC and fairness are doing at the moment. Somehow, a bigger scheme that was approved in 2018, that was 47, as I said, this is 63, which was proposing 30% affordable, notwithstanding that's way below what we would be looking for anyway. It's now gone down to sort of 5% if it's London affordable rent, or 20% if it's wholly shared ownership, and it's a bigger development. So you can see why they're going that route, but you know, that needs to be rigorously tested, it seems to me. It's always been a weakness of policy that if you can demonstrate that you can't afford any, that that's the highest offer you can have, it puts you in an awkward position. I mean, we historically have never really accepted that. But this is not our, the application hasn't come to us, as it were, so all we can do is really pick up on the concerns already expressed by the OPDC and reflect those back and say, look, you know, this needs serious changes to make it acceptable. So that's the kind of hope, you know, with no reason, as I say, at this point in time to think that they will kind of rush to approve this, you know, not without there being some significant work done on the FEA that's already been submitted. But for our purposes, in terms of coming to the committee tonight, we've had to rely on what was submitted with the application. You know, that may well change moving forward.
Committee might find it helpful. Just, I mean, this is a common issue in regen areas, opportunity areas, and particularly in early stages, because the problem you have is that there's not the values there. We had similar issues with White City in the early phases of development coming forward, and they're struggling, and we struggle with and I'm sure the OPDC are using their external consultant to push the value, if you like, they're getting out of the residential, because at the moment people are not going to pay the standard high value they would in a West London location because of what's there at the moment and before it's built out, and all, if you like, the public realm and other uses and supporting infrastructure delivered. So hence the real importance to have the review mechanisms in there to ensure that these things can be tested, and that also sensitivity testing is occurring within the viability appraisals, testing higher values, testing lower costs, and so forth. But it's a fairly common, you know, problem for these early stages of opportunity areas.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? No? Okay, in that case, we'll move on to voting. Firstly, we will vote, well, no, there's only one recommendation, which is on page 81 of the report. Councillor Chabot-Verdier?
And just to clarify, is the recommendation to approve?
So the recommendation, I'll just read it out. Recommendation 1 is that the council raises an objection to the OPDC in relation to this application for the following reasons, and then there's a paragraph about affordable housing, but that's on page 81 of the report.
Thank you for that. 4.
Councillor Souslis? 4. Councillor Walsh?
4.
Councillor Pascal-Toubouré?
4.
I'll also be voting 4, so that recommendation has been approved. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone for attending or watching tonight's meeting. The draft minutes will be published on the website shortly, and they'll be formally approved at our next meeting on the 4th of June 2024. And if you have any queries or questions, please contact the officer in the application report. Thank you very much.